Okay, so let's talk about The Lonely Orbit, directed by Frederick Siegel and Benjamin Morard. This is animation from Switzerland, shows how a satellite technician's inability to cope with his solitude causes a chain reaction in space and in his own mind. Let me start, please. Let me start. Okay, first of all, this short animation reminded me the animation from the last Sapporo Short Film Festival program from last year. It's something about the cat. It has the same style of the opposite colors. It's almost like monocolor animation, but not. Only two of them, but it still creates the story of the black and white style. What about the story? For me, I like how you put in the plot the idea how his solitude causes the chain reaction, because basically it can happen in real life when what's going on in your mind is influence on your real life actions, and you don't even expect in it. It's really uncontrollable.
Yes. No, I totally agree with what you said, both in terms of style and in terms of the narrative way this whole story unfolds. The colors, you said they reminded you of films you had seen previously for their simplicity. And here as well, there's a choice of minimalism because it uses the orange and the blue, which I think is also an excellent combination of cold and hot colors. I also felt a bit of a reference to 2001 A Space Odysseys by Kubrick, of course. And yes, I really love the way it portrays social isolation caused by interconnectedness. And it does this in a brilliant way because the literal and the metaphorical come together to show in a way how humans have lost a grip on actual human connection. And I think it's done wonderfully. The pace, the music, it's very hypnotic. You are really drawn into the entire story as you see it.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's talk about Octopus, directed by Engin Erden. This is a film from Turkey about 8 and 9-year-old best friends, Ese and Efe, who spend a summer day in the Aegean seaside. While they are fishing, what emerges is the contrast between their perspective of the world and the one of the adults surrounding them. So, Lana, what sensation did this film leave you with?
Okay, first of all, I like the names of their girl and boy. Because it reminds me the child books when the character is called almost the same, and yeah, it's really like a deep memory from the childhood. I don't like the idea of the broken dreams, but this is the reality, and their reaction is incredible. Their faces during that moment is wonderful. It's like, oh my god.
OMG!
Yeah, story not only for adults but also for kids. I'm sure that this can be somewhere in the family and children program, if it's not in the international competition.
Yes, and I think it's also almost as if the children could be educating the adults on the final message of the film, because we see this gaze of innocence of the protagonists, of the two children, as opposed to their glance on the world. We have the perspective of these disenchanted adults. So as you said, it's about broken dreams. It is very, very finely shot. I love the way Engin Erden removes the camera sometimes from scenes that could be a little too graphic and too violent. So he allows the audience to imagine what is going on. And yes, the joy of the film lays in this very compassionate byplay. So it leaves this sweet, bitter sensation once you've experienced it.
Yeah, the director is working with not with the visual part, but more with the emotional part. So we basically see what's going on in the final scene with help of the character's face, but not seeing what actually is going on over there. And sound, face and sound, which is great. This is the full use of cinematic instruments. This is what the film art is about, right?
Because it's also allowing the audience to imagine what's going on by observing the reactions on the characters' faces. So, brilliant job.
You know, that face when your reality hits you. Like yeah, the same emotion. Okay, now let's talk about Divided We Scroll, directed by Klaas Deezerman. This is a film from the UK that explores the disquieting reality of a constantly connected world where data and software continuously redefine us within an increasingly complex technological network.
Wow. Very, very impressive film, I must say. And what a description you made.
Thank you. I did my best. It's important to notice that it was the first in this list that a dancing and performance short, because in Sapporo Short Film Festival they also have the special category of the performance and dance shorts. So it's an interesting point to notice.
Yes, this is definitely something that struck my attention. Because I love when other artistic mediums of expression are inserted into cinema. And I found it brilliant how the medium of dance was introduced to show us how technology is somehow rewiring our neurons. And the choreography by Pepe Ubera was exceptional. And it really gives this idea of compulsive relationships with technology, the way we are constantly watching and controlling our devices and have become addicted to them, and how we have become dehumanized because of them. And I also was very much impressed from a more philosophical aspect how the blue light of our computers, of our smartphones, in the film becomes a sort of mystical presence that attracts our attention and has almost this holy and fiendish elements to it, don't you think?
I like that director and the dancers that showed how we connected with our phone. It's the continuous of our hand right now. We just can't left it. We are always with our phones or our laptops. We couldn't imagine ourselves without the networking. And especially through the dance, it's probably the first time I see something like this. And yeah, there's a really, really deep first impression for me. Personally.
Yes. And I think also the title is also rather significant because it plays with the very famous motto, United we stand, divided we fall. And in this case, it brings it to an extreme because divided we scroll. So we scroll and, you know, we're sort of detached from each other on a human level, even though we are attached online.
Yeah, that's right. And there are different way of scrolling in the short film. So the first one is the screen, the scene is scrolling. Then the scrolling of the phone. Then the scrolling of the characters dancing. So even how the director and performer played with the one word and put it in the different layers of the story, which is basically simple. It's just a dance, but no, it's not just simple as you expected, right?
Let's talk about Jamie, directed by Esme Creed Miles. This is a film from the UK about a girl who takes a train to visit her grandmother, and a horrific accident triggers her to newly contextualize her previous idea of her own mortality. So this is a very existential short film, and it brings up a lot of contemporary issues. Lana, you go first.
First of all, for me, as the huge, incredibly huge fan of Danny Boyle Trainspotting movie from 1994, I saw the direct citation at the end, and it was so, oh, that's so cool, that's so cool.
Brava, Esme.
Uploads. Yeah. So, because I saw the same view, and the girl was standing almost in the same place as the characters from the Trainspotting, and she had the same ideas about life, and I'm like, okay, it's already in my heart. Whatever. Whatever. I like this movie. But going back to the idea and to the story, even despite the fact that it's typical like teenage story, and we see how she is really concentrated on her body and thinking that she's probably fat, not perfect enough for this difficult, ugly world. I like that the movie, it's quite long. It's about like 14 minutes, right? But you feel like it's only 5 minutes. And it's not concentrated on the storytelling. We basically see she got an idea, she prepared herself, she took the train, and boom, everything changed. Like it can change in real life. So probably your ideas that you wanted to do are gonna change, and it's not your plan anymore. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's true. It very well portrays how your aha moments, the very important epiphanies you have in real life, occur when you're doing the most day-to-day basis activities. I found very interesting also in terms of cinematic context that this is the directorial debut of this young English actress who was very famous for the Amazon series Hannah. And she did it obviously presenting a very important subject matter because she discusses adolescence, eating disorders, the topic of body dysmorphic disorder, the fact that, as you were saying, that you look at yourself in the mirror and you see a different image from what is in the real world. So once again, this idea of body image that gets very much warped. And of course, in the whole, there's this very important discussion about mental health, which finally has become part of the conversation we are having nowadays, which in the past was very much neglected and not taken too seriously, but of course is very, very relevant to the well-being of every single individual.
And which is important, and what I really like about this movie, it speaks about all these issues from teenage perspective. And the final word that the main character says totally finalize and make a conclusion for all that feelings. It's just this one dirty word that she says out loud describes how teenagers feel. Not adults. Doesn't matter what they think. But now we see the perspective for teenager who has these problems, who faces with these issues. And this is her idea. This is her opinion. But this is so honest. Simple, short, honest, and describing what we want to hear. Not from a adult, but from the person who actually has the most time with these issues facing with when you're a teenager, when you're growing up, when you hate yourself. And now this teenager has a voice with help of this movie. That's beautiful.
You're so right. It really presents that stage of in-betweenness, that stage of transition from childhood to adulthood, and the way you are trying to seek your identity. So it brings up all the troubles and problems and doubts that you are experiencing during that stage. And it does this in a very raw and gutsy way. I agree.
Okay, and now let's talk about Beyond No, directed by Patrick Smith. This is the film co-produced by Japan and the USA that rhythmically animates over 3,000 masks from all over the world. It begins with the distinctive masks of the Japanese No theater and continues on a cultural journey through ritual, utility, deviance, and politics. Okay, so let me start, please, because it really reminds me from the movie from the last year program of the Sapporo Short Film Festival. I don't remember if it took any awards, but it doesn't matter now. It's called My Generation. And it's basically the same story of playing with images of our society and pop culture and politics. But there it made with the road traveling, and in this case it's rhythmical dance of different masks, which is really emotional, and you feel like you're fully involved in the process, how they changing, and you want to see more, and you're so amused when you see, for example, Spider-Man character or Batman character or politics characters, and you feel the director somehow get into your head and catch some ideas from it, because basically it's about the modern generation as well.
Yes, well, to me, I've always been very intrigued by No theater. So already when I read the title and I saw the topic and the fact that it begins with exploring this theatrical genre, I was hooked. And it's a funny coincidence because recently I've been reading about Japanese aesthetics, and I came across the 9 stages of No theater by the originator of all the techniques, who was Zeami. And he explained something that somehow I found in this short. These 9 stages, basically, I'm trying to say it in a nutshell, and I'm not an expert in the field, but how from the bottom layer to the top layer, then the actor who has to become a perfect performer of No theater goes from a mere stage of imitation to a perfect symbiosis with the character. And I thought that this was very much depicted in this film, that we see a sort of video clip of all these masks from around the world going one after the other, but it very much encapsulates both the Western and Eastern idea of how we are all wearing masks, and how after a certain time we become the mask we are wearing with that specific target group or person, and with the fact that society as well is imposing that mask upon us. So I don't know if you also had that sensation as well.
Yeah, I had the feeling that all these ideas of putting the mask on your face, it's on every culture. It doesn't matter where are you from. The people still have the idea that you have to put some kind of an image on your face to pretend to be. Not to be yourself, but to pretend to be someone, to be a warrior, or to be a dancer, or to be an actor, or to be a politics, or a Spider-Man, or a hero, whatever. It's difficult to be yourself. And as more cultured we are, more difficult it is.
it becomes difficult to remove the mask because it becomes part of your identity. And I also found another Japanese term that very much connected to this whole idea, which is Yugen. And it gives this idea of profound and mysterious sense of beauty of the universe. So to me, it also reconnected with all this idea of masks, starting from no theater to the ones that belong perhaps more to the pop culture in the Western world.
And it's not only like speaking about how many masks we are wearing throughout our life, because in this movie we can see not only like masks from pop culture but also from sexual culture mask like BDSM and so on, and you started to feel that almost in every sphere, almost in every area of our life, we have masks everywhere. We are someone. We're trying to pretend to be someone, but where we are, where can we be ourselves? Is there any place where we can be ourselves? So this is the main question I started to ask after watching this short film.
You know, this is very phenomenological.